Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's the boy Nixon coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. I remember when I was a little jit on the bus in middle school, you know, listening to the MIGOS bumping No Label 3, and I was crazy. So I got the MIGOS vocal tutorial here today. I just want to say R.I.P to TAKEOFF. You know, he was one of my favorite rappers growing up. I literally seen the whole progression of the MIGOS, and he was a very important part of that. So let's not waste no time. Let's jump right into the vocal tutorial and see how we could, you know, emulate that MIGOS sound a little P.
Ease Perkin check, Bill check. Take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air out your bra, the coupe came imported. This season's a white come distorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. Know who me be, I'm immortal. Patek AP full of water. 100K I spend in my Toyota. Racks, my picky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the Lear, baguettes they wet tears. 48 hit the gears. Suicide no Britney Spears. I'm bougie so bitch don't get near me. Chris Angel make no disappear. Hit the gas, he got friends at the rear. It's a race at the back of the mill.
So that's what we have right there, the MIGOS tutorial. I'm really excited for this one. And I'm gonna play it again for y'all one more time, just so y'all could hear, you know, the overall progression. I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of ground we gotta cover, but we're gonna go over everything right now. So if you guys do want this template by any chance, you know, go ahead and drop the link down below. If you guys do wanna see any other requests for any artists, drop it down below too. You know I'm more than happy to get to it. So let's listen to it without no plugins, see where we came from and how we got there, all right?
Ease Perkin check, Bill check. Take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air out your bra. Ease Perkin check, Bill check. Take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air out your bra.
All right, so you guys see the progression. Let's look at everything. Let's go over how you could get a sound like that. So the most important thing right here, very beginning, is to understand like what type of sound are we going for. I noticed that in that MIGOS sound that there was like a little bit of very big atmospheric type of beat. So I kind of wanted to paint my picture with the image of like a big ominous atmosphere. So I used a little bit of auto-tune in the beginning, and I did a lot of retune speed for the Quavo part because I wanted this to sound robotic. Zan, Perkin, check, hey, Bill, check, take the air out of ball. You feel me? I wanted it to sound robotic, so I used a zero humanizing. So sometimes, you know, you got to use the auto-tune as an effect. Sometimes you want people to not hear it. It's a bunch of different ways you can approach the auto-tune. So, you know, this is what we kind of had here, and I used a little bit of the flex tune. I have been experimenting some different ways with auto-tune, but I would tell you guys to check my video, like go to like my page and check like one of my first videos with the auto-tune tutorial. I feel like that's one of the best tutorials ever on auto-tune. I feel like nobody ever really explained it. I struggle with it, but now I kind of do understand it, and I'm using it as a creative tool. So that was that right there. So that's the Quavo's part, and then after that we have Offset's part. And usually with the rapping, the spitting, just because it's an auto-tune, I wasn't really making too much melodies. I pulled the retune speed back and I turned up the humanize. Somebody asked me a very good question in the comments. They said something like that, because I'm about to do a NBA YoungBoy template as well. Make sure y'all check out that too. It's gonna be crazy. But they asked me, you know, is there like different settings when it's the same song and people, you know, are rapping and singing? You know, people be going back and forth. And it was a very interesting question, because for me personally, what I do is I usually use the same processing, but like if it's the difference between rapping and singing, I might just duplicate the track and make some minor adjustments, because, you know, kind of like the transient and the sustaining, or the way the person rapping, the way they flowing, their voice moving, there might need to be some slight adjustments. But for the most part, because it's on the same song, I kind of do want it to sound consistent so it could all blend in together, you know, whether if the person is singing or rapping. Okay, cool, that was the auto tune. Next thing that we're gonna jump into is the EQ. You know, nothing crazy, you know, this is just you know, a little bit of lows that I rolled off. I was actually kind of very moderate with it because I wanted some of the power in the vocal, because there wasn't that much background vocals, too much, you know. There was the little head, a little everything. I'm gonna show y'all that too. And then there was also the ad-libs as well. So yeah, you know, we rolled off just a little bit, like at 100 hertz, nothing crazy, and the vocal still came out very clean. It's all about how you work the mic. You know, usually when you rapping into a mic, make sure you put your hand, you know, to give yourself a little bit distance. You know, the closer you come up to a microphone, the more low end energy will be in there. And sometimes in the DAW, you know, it will hit your chain. It will make everything work a little bit harder. You know, low end energy is kind of what drives compressors. So if you're coming up a little too close to the microphone, maybe all your compressors are working even harder, and it's making your vocal sound over compressed. So think about that too. Then after that, I did a little cut right here in the mid bass. You know, just a little narrow cut. I did that towards the end. You know, usually when you're a mixer, you gotta always keep going back and forth. Mixing is something that's constantly changing. So just because, okay, I got a good EQ right there, towards the end of the song, it might not sound like that. You might have to go back. Oh, so then after that, we had a little low shelf, just kind of tonally balancing the bottom part of the vocal. And, you know, we just boosted a little bit of a little high shelf right here to give it a little bit of that zinging, zinging, zinging. That's what was my main focus here, that little croak. So let's pay attention to that EQ move real quick.
Yeah. The coup came imported. This season's a white. Zan, Birkin check, Bill, Bella check. Take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall. Walking with the safe, take the air out your bra.
So really, we got a lot of stuff to go over, so we just looked at that real quick. But with EQ, it's all about positioning for me, you know. It's not necessarily about cleaning it up or making it dirty, but just how do I want the vocal to sit in the track. So think about that, you know. The way the frequencies work, it will tell you like where the mix is sitting in the song. And the next thing that we have right here is the Abbey Road RS124. So this is inspired by a modified Altec. I use this one specifically because it has a very gritty way, and even when you push it very hard, like 5-10 dB, it still doesn't crap out on you, which is always a good sign that it's a well-modeled you know, plugin, because that's how real analog hardware in real life is like. So with this one, I use the fast recovery because it is a Verimute compressor, and sometimes those Verimute compressors like Fairchild's, all that stuff from back in the day, you know, sometimes the release time can be very slow, but if you're rapping quick like Offset, it could kind of mess up the vibe. And really quickly, let's look at what it sounded like before and without.
The coup came imported. This season's a white come distorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. Know who me be, I'm immortal. Protect an AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my picky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the Lear, but gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gear.
So specifically, I was pushing a good amount of the output and the input as well, because I did want a little bit of that saturation. You know, specifically with an analog hardware unit, the input has a sound, the output has a sound. So I'm using, taking advantage of this plugin here to give me a little bit of course, smoothing compression, because I want everything to be smooth and well-rounded, but also to give me some of that grit, some of that color, some of that aliveliness that, you know, sometimes when you record something in real life and then you hear it back, it might not sound like what it sounded like in the room. So I'm using that to give it more life. Then we have something like the C4 multiband, and I wasn't too aggressive at all. I'm barely doing anything, but when you set a multiband, the main thing for me is like, you gotta watch how the compressor is moving a little bit to see if it's complementing the flow of the rapper.
The coup came imported. This season's a white come distorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. Know who me be, I'm immortal. Protect an AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my picky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the Lear, but gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gears. Suicide, no Britney Spears. I'm bougie, so bitch don't get near me. Chris Angel make no bitch appear. Hit the gas, he got friends at the.
So I used more of the C4 for kind of like a tonal balancing, especially when he's with the guess I got friends at the rear. Like, I don't want it to go all over the place because that's a lot of like transient energy, especially in the high mid. So I'm doing like an overall type of multi-band tickling type of thing just to help the vocal really become solid and just even out and make the performance very consistent. So a multi-band is incredible. You can use it as a de-esser sometimes. You can use it as kind of like an EQ if you make the release times slower, because it will just clamp it and hold it down. Or you can just use it in a method like this where it's about tonally balancing the flow. The coupe da porte, like he's switching up the flow so quick, but I still want the flow to, you know, still sound smooth and not all over the place. You know, it's kind of like a wild animal. His flow is kind of like a wild animal. I'm using the multiband to put a little chain on that thing and say, hold on, you ain't going nowhere, bitch. So after that, we have the Magma BB2s. This is a very good plugin by Waves that recently came out. I may possibly do another further video into this. Essentially, this is just tube saturation. You have a little bit of transformer, which I turned on. You know, the transformer gives a little bit of kind of like saturation in the low mid, so it gives a little bit body, you know. So that was my main thing here. My lead vocal, I wanted it to be very strong, so I turned on the transformer. Then after that, we used a little bit of the beauty and the beast. So you have two types. The beast is kind of like the greedy type of you know, distortion, and the beauty is like the little kind of sweet old little type of distortion, you know, the good boy, you know. So this is the good boy and this is the bad boy. So, you know, I got a blend between both of them, you know. And it was just really for color and just really helping everything jump off the page.
This season's a white come distorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. Know who me be, I'm immortal. But take a AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my pinky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the leer. But gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gears. Suicide dope Britney Spears. I'm bougie so bitch don't get near me. Chris Angel make dope disappear. Hit the gas.
So what I'm using this more of kind of like an exciter, because I do want my vocals to have a little bit of crunch. When you pay attention to Quavo, Van, Berkey, check, yeah, Bill, Bella, check, like it has a little bit of crunch to it. So I'm using the BB tube, I'm using the saturation, especially the beast part, to give me that crunch with the auto tune, you know. So let's pay attention again.
Bill, Bella, check, take the air out the ball, yeah, just so I can flex, take the air out the mall. Walking with the sack, take the air at your bra.
So it's just making everything sound a little bit more like a real life conversation. That's what I'm always trying to make it do. I'm trying to make the music speak to the people. So something like saturation, you know, it does have a little bit of smoothing type of characteristic a little bit. When you push it, you know, push it really hard, it can give you a form of compression. But with the BB2s, I'm looking for it to give me a little bit of grit, a little bit, you know. So, you know, the Abbey Road is doing that. The BB tubes is doing that. The C4 was a way of controlling that, because that's what I want out of this vocal crunch. Before I put the key in the car, I knew where I was gonna drive to. That's kind of how you have to be with mixing. Okay, de-esser, nothing crazy. We don't care about that. We've seen that 100 million times. You know, that's the thing about my videos. If you guys sometimes see me not go over something, it's a reason. Just because, you know, I don't like to repeat myself, you know what I mean? I don't like to waste your time, and I don't like to waste my time either. So I'm always trying to talk about the new stuff. So then we have the SSLE channel, and of course, you know, used a little bit of that VCA compression to give a little bit more bite, a little bit more crunch, a little bit more, you know, teeth type of greedy type of sound.
Me being I'm immortal. But take a AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my pinky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the leer. But gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gears. Suicide dope Britney Spears. I'm bougie so bitch don't get near me. Chris Angel make dope disappear. Hit the gas, he got friends at the rear. It's a race at the back of the.
So the SSL is just going in there, cleaning it up a little bit more, taking care of some of that low part. On my first EQ, I kind of wanted it to, you know, go through the saturation, everything like that. So you have to do that on purpose sometimes. I left more of the low, you know, the bottom cleaning for the SSL E channel, versus where on my first EQ, I was kind of moderate about it. So I did that on purpose because I know the order of the plugins. You know, I wanted it to hit that BB tube so that the bottom could get a little a part of the little grit that I was looking for. You know, this song is gritty but still very smooth, more sport. And then after that, we have the fresh air. We pushed it a little bit right here on the mid air, and we also pushed it on the high, and that just gives it that mainstream C800 type of sound.
I'm immortal, but take an AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my pinky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the leer. But gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gears. Suicide dope Britney Spears. I'm bougie so bitch don't get near me.
So you have to understand that was a very important thing that I did right there, because I was kind of like marinating my vocal at that point. You hear how when I take out the fresh air, it completely sounds dark. I did that on purpose because I had to marinate my vocal, prepare it, you know, put the spices on it and make it kind of dull, so that when I do put that one ingredient in it, which is the fresh air, it could really sound sparkly and really bright without being harsh. Whenever I'm recording or I'm mixing, I'm always trying to think about, man, like what happens when I got to listen to this song 100 times? Like, how is it going to make me feel? You know, because that's what makes a good song, a song that you could play over and over and over and over and over and over again, you know, the soundtrack to the life. And then you have something like the J37, which is just giving some analog flavor.
Chris Angel make dope disappear. Know who me be, I'm immortal. But take an AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my pinky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the leer. But gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gears. Suicide dope Britney Spears. I'm bougie so bitch don't get near me. Chris Angel make dope disappear. Hit the gas, he got friends at the rear. It's a race at the back of the mill.
And then we had another de-esser here, you know, doing some work. Let me see if this is a
Ease and Perkin check, Bill check. Take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the.
And you know, that was kind of like a counter move to the fresh air because I pushed this fresh air so hard I went in with the de-esser. So next thing we have is a doubler, just giving the vocal a little bit of whiff, nothing crazy like that. We've already went over that 100 times. Then we have the H delay, very good, and with the ping pong effect, so it was helping give it that bounce, that eighth note. I didn't do too much delay because there was only so much space inside of this grocery bag, which is the song, so I couldn't fit all of those cans of soup and all of those fruits and vegetables because the bag was only so small, so I didn't have two delays. Sometimes you can only have one delay, one reverb. The beat will tell you how much space is in there, and this beat is very reverbery, very atmospheric, so my decisions are based on that. You know, when you mix and you gotta listen to the beat gonna tell you how much, you know, space is in the garage, so you gonna know how you could park it. Can you park reverse, front? Can you put 2, 3, 4 cars in it? Understand that the beat is a garage, it only got so much space in it, so pay attention to that too. And then I love using this plugin right here, center. You know, I cut a little bit out of the center channel. It's like a mid-side processing, and I pushed it on the sides. It helped the delay become a little bit wider. But in a situation like this, you know, this was a delay where I didn't want you to hear it because I understood that the garage was, you know, not that big. So this is more of a delay that's heard than felt, you know, so we're not gonna really you know, linger on it about too much, you know, because, you know, it was just helping give it a little bit of bounce, you know, a little bit of movement, not really necessarily heard.
Check, take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air out your bra. Check, Bill check. Take the air out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the.
All right, yep, so that's what it is. And then the next thing after that we have is our hairy reverb chain. So this is like that mainstream reverb, and the main important thing to know about a mainstream reverb, using something like a exciter or a distorter, and, you know, having the reverb buzz a little bit, is it helps the listener identify where the reverb is at. So in a situation where it was the beat was so atmospheric and everything like that, I used the vintage oral exciter just to help the reverb get a little bit of buzz. And let's listen to, you know, how it sounds like in the context of the mix. You know, I wanted the vocal to have its own space, but I don't want it to get lost by having another big reverb, you know?
The coupe came imported. This season's a white come extorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. No homie bean, I'm immortal. Patek a AP full of water. 100K I spend in my Toyota. Racks, my picky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's.
Literally, when I take it out, it's like, where did the reverb go? Like, the reverb literally disappeared, you know? So the vintage oral exciter, it helps give the reverb a different timbre. And because now you have a different like timbre, like a high-end type of sheen, now the listener can identify, oh, that's a whole new reverb in the middle. Listen to when he's rapping, you can hear like the reverb is kind of like a little paint, you know? It's kind of like a little tail, you know? It's kind of like following where the you know, his words are. Listen.
The coupe came imported. This season's a white come extorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. No homie bean, I'm immortal. Patek a AP full of water. 100K I spend in my Toyota. Racks, my picky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the lyre, but gets they wet tears. 48 hit the gears.
So yep, that's what we had here. Then after that, you know, we had a very small vocal plate, something very simple with the pre-delay time. The pre-delay makes the reverb not work instantly, and that's not what I want. I don't want it to work instantly because I want to keep my vocal a little bit dry. It's the point of reference for the listener. The beat is already airy, so the vocal has to be like that ground. You know what I mean? The beat is like the sky and the vocal is like the ground. It's like the soil, it's like the dirt, you know? So I'm telling the listener, where is everything in this world that I'm creating, which is the mix. You know, every mix is like a community. It's like a village. It's like a, you know, thing, a community filled with like people in it, and everything got to talk to each other and work. So it's a situation like that too. Then we have, you know, a situation where I made my own CL1B. So I understand that a CL1B has a input tube, you know, input tube. Then it also has an optical compressor with variable attack and release. And yeah, pretty much I got that from Tilly, who is, you know, he's the MIGOS engineer. He's like my favorite engineer because, you know, he kind of helped create the soundtrack to my life. You know, that's why I engineer, because I want to make meaningful music that, you know, people be bumping into and they're like, damn, boy, I remember back in the day we used to be funking to that song. That song brings me back. It gives me memories. So, you know, Tilly, who is Thomas Mann, he's Lil Baby's engineer as well. He made he recorded like every Lil Baby album, you know. And he did MIGOS No Label 3. That's the one that made me fall in love with MIGOS when I was listening to it on the bus in middle school. So that's why he's like my favorite engineer, you know. So sometimes you got to do that. You go look at some of your favorite songs and look at who recorded them, because usually sometimes it might be the same person who did all of your songs. And that's why I always talk about music is about life perspective. You feel me? Because when you put your life in it, it's like, you know, it just makes it more relatable to people. Like now it's like a connection. And then I think Tilly did a video too on YouTube. Go look it up, Sound on Sound Tilly. And, you know, he was just amazing. Tilly talked about how, oh yeah, when you be in the studio, I be trying to keep the background noise, the chains, the chatter, all of that stuff. And I'm like, damn, that's what I be on, where I be talking about, I don't like clean vocals. I like my vocals to be noisy. I like it to be noisy. And like, he just confirmed that to me. And that's why I relate to him. But it's crazy because even before they put out that video a year ago, I was already been like, yo, I resonate with the sound that Tilly has. So he my favorite engineer, QC engineer, Tilly, look him up. And then after that, we had something like the Abbey Rose, you know, coming in there. The preset is vocal pummel. It's just making the vocals sit flat, you know, becoming very dense. So 2 types of parallel compression, one moving around and the other one that is very dense. And that's the thing about you know, the R compressor is this one of the few optical compressors that give you the variable attack and release, that and the CL1B. So that's kind of what makes the CL1B very special too, variable attack and release, because most optical compressors like a 3A, a 2A, even something like Summit TLA, you know, usually that those settings are kind of like program dependent or either fixed, like with the TLA. So, you know, the optical component nature is very interesting. You know, people don't really get to dial in like that with an optical component. So then after that, we have the harmonies where Quay was like, ooh, and we did it perfectly. Literally, that's how it sounded like in the song.
Perkin check, he bill, check. Take the air out the ball, he just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air.
So I like that one a lot. It's kind of like a harmony. So let's look at how I processed it. You know, very first thing that I use is the mono mod. You know, it was originally a mono track, but then I duplicated it twice, created a stereo track and dropped it down. So now it's a stereo instance. Now I got that bit moving around a little bit. And that's the thing what I always try to tell you guys, you know, like I'm in a room right now that don't even got no acoustic treatment, but I got that bit sounding like what the MIGOS sound like. Like go listen to the song and compare it to this, and it's literally there, you know? And that's the thing about it. I try to tell you guys, don't let the equipment hold you back. It don't even matter about the plugins either, because, you know, maybe they didn't use these same plugins, but it don't matter. You know, it don't matter what car they drive. We still both got down the street, you know what I mean? So don't ever let the tools hold you back. Always believe in yourself, because as long as you believe in yourself, you could always overcome. And that don't just be about music, that's really about life in general, you feel me? So after that, you know, LA2A, slow air release, that slow air release, they're really stabilizing it.
He's and Perkin check, he bill, check. Take the air out the ball, he just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air out your bra.
Yep, okay, next thing after that, let's go ahead and look at it. You know, I used a little bit EQ, taking off the low end to position it, not necessarily clean or muddy. I took off the low end to push it in the back. The less lows you hear, the more something sounds back. And then I ain't even roll off too much top because I still wanted it to become audible. Next thing after that, you know, we had an RVox. And with the RVox, is never nothing crazy with an RVox. It's a gate compressor and just really just helping tighten up the vocal, helping it become solid. That's what I wanted out of this too, solidity, because I already got it moving around, but I don't want it to get lost in the music, especially inside of this pool, which is like the beat. After that, you know, SSL E channel, putting in a little work, boosting a lot of top, cutting out a little bit of, you know, type of like kind of giving it like a warming characteristic a little bit, really, and then cutting out a lot of bottom and doing a little bit of compression too with a fast release and a fast attack. So I'm taking out the punch out of that. Ooh, oh. I don't want it to have no transient. I want it to sound flat. I want it to sound like a pancake. You know, this is breakfast. We cooking up with this mix. So also let me look real quick.
The ball, yeah, just so I can flex. Take the air out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the air out your bra.
Yep, so just pretty much something that's just really helping clean it up and make it stay good. Then we have a fresh air, giving it that crispiness, that that's what really made it, you know?
Yeah, just so I can flex, take the air out the mall, walking with the sack, take the air out your bra. Yeah. The coupe came imported. This season's a white come extorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. Know who me be, I'm immortal. Protect an AP full of water. 100K I spend in my cigar.
So I could turn it up even a little bit more loud too, so y'all could hear it a little bit better. Let's look without the chain.
Zan, Perkin, check, Bill, check. Take the L out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the L out the mall, walking with the sack. Take the L at your bra. Zan, Perkin, check, Bill, check. Take the L out the ball, just so I can flex. Take the L out the mall, walking with the sack.
Yep, so there it is. It don't matter if whatever plugins they use, because as long as you can figure out your way, that's the way that really matters the most. And then we use center, cutting out more of the mid channel, and we push the side. So it's not too many crazy plugins. Most of these plugins are in the gold bundle. If y'all do want to get this template down below, y'all gonna go check it out. We use the doubler, give it a little bit more type of dimension, you know, with the doubler. It's a basic doubler. And, you know, we just running through everything right now. It's a lot of ground to cover. You know, some people be like, oh, you got to show me every single thing, Nick. Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell y'all. At the end of the day, I'm preaching to you. You have to figure out your own way to do things. You know, there was a way Tilly did it when he mixed the song. There was a way that I did it to get it sounding like that. Well, now I'm telling you, sometimes you got to figure out your way to do stuff. All right, so then the last thing that we got here is the ad-libs. Let's look at this change. So just a basic EQ, nothing crazy. You know, a lot of the times these people are keeping it very simple. That's what Tilly taught me as well in his video. So, and the next thing that we have is like an R comp, but it's actually working as an upwards expander. So I'm adding volume to the ad-libs. The attack time as well is just helping it. I'm pumping up the ad-libs, you know, making it even more hyped.
Yeah. The coupe came imported. This season's a white come distorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise. Know who me be, I'm immortal. Protect an AP full of water. 100K I spend in my IZOTOPE. Racks, my pinky on margin butter. And my ears got McDonald's nuggets. As soon as I land on the Lear, baguettes they wet in tears. 48 hit the gears. So I
Yep, so there you go. You know, I was using the upwards expander to hype up my ad-libs. After that, we had a C1 gate, you know, kind of like doing like an 80s, you know how the 80s snare sounds, pop, pop. You know, I was just gating the ad-lib before it hit the reverb and 2 layers of reverb. And the most important thing that I would just want to talk about is the fact that the reverbs have a different timbre. So the lead vocal reverb has a dark grit, it has fur on it, but all the background reverbs, they don't have that. They're just smooth. So I'm using that to create distance, to create separation, letting the listener know, hey, this is what sharp is, hey, this is what dull is, hey, this is what east is, hey, this is what west is, hey, this is what north, this is what south is. I'm telling the listener everything, you feel me? You got to do, as an engineer, you're like a storyteller, you a narrator, you got to tell everybody where everything is at, and you got to make it obvious. You know, different ways of doing that: compression, movement, you know, the release times, the timbre of the reverb, which is like the top of the reverb. Is the reverb buzzing or is it not buzzing? You know what I mean? A situation like that. And then a little parallel compression with the SSL channel.
Yeah. The coupe came imported. This season's a white come distorted. Green Lamborghini a tortoise.
So we're using a limiting ratio of about 20 to 1. So any ratio that's 20 or more makes it a limiter, and anything below that is just compressor. So this one is just kind of brick wall, just helping the ad-libs become very hot. The coupe deported, so then the last thing here you guys are gonna have is a little mix bus chain. I'm giving y'all more, you know. So check out the template, and then you have a Fairchild, a 670, you know, but not really even doing any compression at all. If you know you guys do use the template, you might as well just turn it off to 0. It's more there for tonal characteristics. Then we have a Puig EQ P1A. It's not even, you know, doing no EQ, and it's just running through. Sometimes I love to just open up these plugins on the mix bus and just let it run through, you know, because it's gonna give it some sauce. So this is pretty much the end of the video here today. I hope you guys were able to learn a lot. It was a lot to cover: lead vocal, harmonies, background vocals. There's only so much that we could cover in every video, but I hope I was able to you know, help you guys a lot. Just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. If you have any more comments or questions or any more suggestions for content down below, go ahead and drop it. Thanks a lot. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.